Hey everyone, get ready for a night where we step into the realms of a world where fires are glowing beneath an infinite sky, where distant hooves beat through stark terrain, and where whole cities are up and taking questions about the stories they've gone through. There's a warrior who rises, whose secrets are hidden from the wrong people. So, just before you start getting cozy, don't forget, and while you're hanging out, genuinely into what I do here, it's always cool to see where in the world we're joining tonight's adventure. Now, lower the lights and maybe add a fan to fill the background with a soft hum. As you find your footing on an enormous frontier, the air is thin and cool. The grass is everywhere around you with little barriers in between. The horizon seems farther away than ever. Maybe the world itself is shifting into a land of mostly land. There's just no one else in sight, unless you count the occasional hill that quietly moves across the landscape. At first, it feels perfectly calm. Then you start noticing something peculiar. This calm isn't inviting. It's suspenseful. There's something out there, moving in unseen shadows. These riders are far better at the terrain than any maps. Better than any army could ever be. That's what they know a lot of people never think about. Fear can spread faster than soldiers and stories. Before a battalion arrives, stories begin popping up. A shop vendor tells tales of towns that just leave people behind. A traveler says he observed armies traveling like never before. Another person claims he witnessed soldiers appearing from the impossible. As people get concerned, uncertainty starts to spread. And that's when fear really starts working. Throughout history, there are always some fear-wielders who make their mark. A handful of warriors are often remembered, but even fewer become legendary. A truly fearsome warrior is more than just a tough fighter. He's or she's everything bigger than the real world. A fearsome warrior becomes an imagination. To be on the lookout for this incredible warrior, one of history's most feared, will be more than just enjoying a thrilling adventure. It will serve as an exploration of how fear can shape our lives over time. While a traveler claims he witnessed unthinkable distances and astonishing time by sword, however, no one knows for sure if these tales are true. Fear begins to take over, and people worry about who might be telling them false information. From ancient empires to modern conflicts, psychological warfare has always been crucial for success. Commanders have known that winning minds can be just as important as winning battles. With time, you realize that the most feared warrior might not need to be the strongest. A true legend becomes something much more than just a person. They become stories that can be terrifying. As night falls, you think about how different life was in the past. Today, news spreads quickly, and people can gather in markets. Back then, information came slowly, and travelers had to rely on horses, ships, and tired travelers to pass on information. This created a unique environment where rumors could spread unchecked. Some stories might become legendary, inspiring victory, fear, and even monsters. Yet there's no guarantee that this world will end well. One becomes curious about how far the legend has come across various civilizations. This uncertainty keeps the legend alive. Even while still young, the child is taught to rely on trusted friends. The future warrior learns to depend on his strengths and talents. Nobody knows that the name of that legend will be spoken for generations. For now, they're all just trying to survive in difficult conditions. History often starts quietly. Legends usually don't announce themselves. Instead, they begin with ordinary moments. A tough winter, a family struggling together, a child learning who to trust, an ordinary soldier discovering extraordinary talent. Only later do historians recognize the importance of those moments. Staring into the fire, you imagine the future legend reaching far across the history, shaping landscapes and modifying beliefs. Eventually, the legend takes shape, reaching beyond the darkness, making its presence felt. Even now, as you close your eyes, you feel the shadow of that future legend stretching across history. Forgotten boy wandered the windswept plains of the Mongolian steppe, abandoned, hungry, alone. Most children born into such circumstances disappear into history without leaving a trace. But this boy was different. Not because he was stronger, not because he was richer, and certainly not because he was protected. He was different because he refused to surrender. Years passed across the endless grasslands, The harsh child slowly became a determined young warrior. Life on the steppe offered no mercy. Every day was a struggle. Every meal had to be earned. Every alliance had to be won. Every mistake could mean death. Yet while others saw only hardship, the young warrior saw opportunity. He learned to ride for days without rest. He learned to track enemies across vast distances. He learned how rival tribes fought. Most importantly, he learned something many leaders never understand. People follow strength, but they remain loyal to trust. And trust was exactly what he began building. At first, he gathered only a handful of followers, a few loyal companions, a few friends who believed in him. Nothing more. No grand army, no mighty kingdom, just a small group struggling to survive together. To outsiders, they seemed insignificant. But history often begins with things that appear insignificant. A spark, a rumor, a dream, or a young warrior with nothing to lose. As his reputation slowly spread, more people began joining him. Not because they feared him, not yet, because they respected him. Unlike many tribal leaders, he rewarded loyalty. He shared victories. He remembered favors. And he treated talented followers as valuable allies rather than disposable servants. This was unusual. The steppe was filled with ambitious chiefs and rival clans. Power was often inherited. Status was often determined by birth. But the young warrior cared less about family names and more about ability. If a man proved useful, he was welcomed. If he proved loyal, he was rewarded. This simple idea attracted followers from every direction. His small band began growing, and with growth came danger. The more successful he became, the more enemies he created. Rival leaders watched carefully. Some mocked him, others ignored him. A few began to worry. They should have worried more. Because while they argued among themselves, the young warrior continued building something far more dangerous. Unity. The tribes of the steppe had spent generations fighting one another. Old grudges lasted decades. Blood feuds lasted even longer. Every tribe wanted power. Every chief wanted control. Nobody trusted anyone. The chaos seemed endless. Yet the young warrior saw something others did not. A divided people could survive. A united people could conquer. But before he could unite anyone, tragedy struck once again. Upon a fateful day, an enemy group initiated a horrific assault on him. They hijacked his loved one's wife, a devastating blow to most leaders. However, this young warrior turned the disaster into a rallying point, joining his allies and set out on a daring rescue mission to inspire and make the gods weep. The perilous journey led him across vast plains and night after night, relentlessly seeking his enemies. Eventually, they were cornered and battled in a frenzied, chaotic battle. His wife was rescued, and the people witnessed what he could achieve with a devoted band of allies. This transformed him into a legend, with tales of courage and leadership spread far and wide. His followers swelled, turning him into a formidable force. The rival chiefs could no longer ignore him as his influence grew, making his dream of unity a reality. Fueled by each battle, evolving strategically, and becoming more formidable, he left his rivals in disbelief. Soon, the endless tribal wars would come to an end, uniting the scattered peoples of the steppe. Under the skies of the endless horizon, an awakening Grand Council was convened to acknowledge this heroic leader, and his impact on the world, everlasting, for a man who transformed the steppe into a powerful force forever. For what feels like eons, this enigmatic warrior has loomed as a legendary figure in the epic saga of the Mongol Empire. As a leader of unparalleled prowess, he orchestrated the unification of tribes that had been embroiled in relentless warfare for generations, ultimately emerging as the founder of the colossal Mongol Empire. The title Genghis Khan doesn't just mean universal ruler or oceanic ruler. It's practically a damned throne of might and supremacy. In the years following his meteoric rise, he constructed a military juggernaut so formidable that it dwarfed even the mightiest kingdoms in history. Can you believe that? A hallmark of Genghis Khan's legendary army was its ironclad discipline, where soldiers were catapulted to glory based on sheer skill and audacity rather than some fancy noble lineage. This innovative approach birthed a force so swift and efficient that no enemy had ever witnessed anything like it. Seriously, it was like watching a whirlwind of doom. Moreover, Genghis Khan's reputation was a powerful weapon in itself. Long before the arrows flew, whispers of the unstoppable Mongol tide sent shivers down the spines of adversaries. The very essence of this empire thrived on its indomitable reputation, the sheer terror it instilled in its subjects, and its audacious advances into uncharted territories. As the Mongols swept across lands and cities, their influence unfurled like a massive, unstoppable wave throughout Asia. The sheer scale of this expansion was nothing short of mind-boggling. With entire civilizations crumbling before the might of Genghis Khan's forces, what the hell, right? But hold on to your horses, because the tale of Genghis Khan doesn't end with his conquests. Oh no! It only ignites a fiery spark. The legacy of his name and empire continued to swell, leaving an indelible mark on the annals of history. These jaw-dropping conquests defy an entire age of conquest, forever reshaping the tapestry of the world. How's that for a legacy?
The world had finally learned his name, Genghis Khan, a name that would soon echo across continents. By the beginning of the 13th century, the Mongol leader had achieved what many believed was impossible. The tribes of the steppe were united, his armies were disciplined, and his reputation was growing with every victory. But Genghis Khan was not content with ruling Mongolia. His ambitions stretched far beyond the horizon. To the west lay powerful kingdoms, wealthy cities, and vast trade networks connecting Asia and Europe. These lands had armies, fortresses, and rulers who believed they were secure. They had no idea what was coming. The Mongol army was unlike anything the medieval world had seen. Its strength was not just in numbers but in speed, discipline, and adaptability. A Mongol force could travel extraordinary distances in a matter of days. Each warrior carried multiple horses, allowing armies to move faster than their enemies thought possible. By the time news of a Mongol invasion arrived, the Mongols were often already there. Before we continue, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments, which empire in history do you think was the most powerful? As Mongol armies pushed westward, kingdom after kingdom fell before them. Cities that resisted often faced devastating consequences. Cities that surrendered were frequently spared. This created a powerful psychological effect. Fear spread faster than the armies themselves. Stories traveled along trade routes. Merchants carried rumors across deserts and mountains. Travelers spoke of horsemen who seemed unstoppable. Soon, entire regions were preparing for wars that had not yet arrived. One of Genghis Khan's greatest strengths was his willingness to learn. Unlike many conquerors, he did not ignore foreign knowledge. He adopted useful technologies, employed skilled engineers, and incorporated new tactics whenever they could strengthen his empire. This flexibility made the Mongols even more dangerous. Their enemies often expected traditional warfare. Instead, they faced an army that adapted to every challenge. The empire expanded rapidly. Across Central Asia, cities fell. Trade routes came under Mongol control. The influence of Genghis Khan stretched farther every year. What had once been a collection of scattered tribes was now becoming the largest contiguous land empire in history. And yet, despite his successes, time continued moving forward. Years of campaigning had transformed Genghis Khan from a struggling survivor into one of history's most powerful rulers. But no leader rules forever. In 1227, during a campaign in western China, Genghis Khan died. The exact circumstances of his death remain uncertain even today. Some accounts suggest illness. Others tell different stories. The truth has been lost to history. In many ways, it was a fitting end. A man whose life had become legend left behind one final mystery. Yet his death did not bring an end to the Mongol Empire. Far from it, his successors continued expanding the empire across Asia, the Middle East, and eventually into parts of Europe. The empire he created outlived him. His descendants ruled enormous territories. His armies reshaped political boundaries. His influence transformed trade routes and connected distant parts of the world. For centuries, historians have debated his legacy. To some, Genghis Khan was a brilliant military genius. To others, he was a ruthless conqueror. Both views contain truth. His campaigns brought destruction to many regions, but they also connected cultures, expanded trade, and changed the course of world history. Few individuals have left such a lasting impact. Today, more than 800 years after his death, the name Genghis Khan remains known across the world. His story continues to fascinate historians, military experts, and ordinary people alike. Perhaps that is because his journey seems almost impossible. A boy abandoned on the steppe, a survivor with no kingdom, a warrior with only a handful of followers, and eventually the founder of an empire that stretched across continents. It is one of history's most extraordinary transformations, from nomad to conqueror, from exile to emperor, from an unknown child on the Mongolian steppe to one of the most influential figures who ever lived. So, was Genghis Khan truly the most feared warrior in history? There may never be a definitive answer. History is filled with great conquerors and legendary commanders, but few inspired the level of fear, respect, and fascination that Genghis Khan continues to command centuries later. His empire eventually faded, his armies disappeared, his cities changed, but his legend survived. And perhaps that is the greatest victory of all, because while empires rise and fall, legends endure, and the legend of Genghis Khan remains one of the most powerful stories ever written in human history. Thank you